Jak przejdą w tą centrynę i dojdą do tego płotu, podsuwamy się tak.
حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين
Alles gut.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله
Sehr weihnachtlich.
أشهد
V žilách ti proudí česká krev, braň odkaz předků jejich čest. Nenech si nikdy svou zem vzít, svou hrdost mít, ten odkaz za svou zem národ, za Boha, krví se zbarví obloha. Nenecháš padnout zemi svou, když černé stíny nocí jdou.
Whenever you're dealing with an apologist for Islam, or even a Muslim, and you bring up jihad, almost immediately they kick back to you, well, what about those terrible crusades? Why, they're the moral justification for jihad. I mean, we're just as bad as they are, so let's not talk about jihad, okay? Let's talk about the crusades. Well, what I would like to talk about here are facts. And it turns out I sat down and put together some work, and I created a database of some 548 battles that Islam fought, jihad battles against classical civilization. And these aren't even all the battles. It really doesn't say much about Africa and India, Afghanistan and all that. It's primarily the battles against the classical civilization of Rome and Greece. So, 548 battles is a lot, and it's too much to even comprehend. So I created something which I call a dynamic battle map, in which you have a display of the Mediterranean, and a white dot means that this 20-year period, that's a new battle. So every time the screen changes, it's 20-year period. The colors white turn to red, and so you can see a history. This may seem a little confusing, but I think when you see it, you'll know exactly what I mean. And here it starts. Islam burst out of the Arabian Peninsula and immediately starts attacking the Middle East. And notice that it doesn't take long until they're crossing the Mediterranean and attacking southern France and Spain. Notice something here. Most people think of Islam, they think of Arabs, they think of desert, and yet here we see that Islam is projecting power throughout the Mediterranean. Notice how the little islands of the Mediterranean are getting hammered. The navy of Islam would attack coastal towns, kill, rob, rape, and then take slaves. So this whole battle map, as it unfolds, you're seeing slaves being taken. Over 1 million slaves were taken out of Europe into the Islamic world. That's something you don't think about much, but it's absolutely true. There were over 200 battles fought in Spain alone. And we also see, however, on the East Coast in Turkey, that Islam is trying to break into Europe. Now, what's going to happen is, in Spain, this ongoing fight that lasted for 400 years, the Christians are going to push back the Muslims. But now then, what has happened over in the East is that Constantinople has fallen, and now then Eastern Europe is getting hammered. The jihad now comes to Eastern Europe. It's pushed out now of Spain. Northern Africa is now completely Islamic. The Middle East is completely Islamic. This is all jihad, relentless jihad. And why is it so relentless? Well, Muhammad was relentless in his jihad. And these people are good students of Islam, and so it's against the kafir, on and on. It was traditional that when the Sultan came to power, the brand new Sultan, he would immediately try to launch new wars because he was going to be noted in his Islamic history as to how well he fought against the kafir. So that's what the jihad looked like over that time period, 548 battles. But remember, when you bring up jihad, people want to bring up the Crusades. So I also prepared a dynamic battle map of all the offensive raids of the Crusaders. Let's watch it and make a comparison. And so it begins. The Crusades enter into Turkey and the Middle East. Battles go on, but aren't there far fewer than you thought there might be? And here we go. The last battles are fought, and that is the end of the Crusades. So now then we can talk about some facts. Yes, there were Crusades, but notice they ended centuries ago, and jihad is being practiced today. Jihad has been with us for 1,400 years. There is no comparison between jihad and the Crusades, certainly not a moral comparison. And when you're looking at the Crusades, remember, in one sense, all of the Crusades were defensive wars. Why? Well, as we saw on the first jihad map, it was Islam that came out of Arabia and conquered the Middle East, a Christian Middle East. And so the Crusaders were trying to free their Christian brothers and sisters from jihad. So there's no moral comparison at all. The motivation of the Crusaders was to free Christians. The purpose of jihad is to enslave the kafir. So the next time you hear somebody talk about, oh, those dreadful Crusades, you've seen some facts about the matter. Why don't you pipe up and tell them you don't really know the matter?
And this video is going to be a little more personal than usual. It's about why the Crusades are important to me. I've always thought that a big part of expanding one's mind is confronting ideas that sort of defy your own cultural milieu. In the case of 21st century Western society, pop culture emphasizes mild manners, keeping your own beliefs private, putting economic concerns ahead of spiritual or religious convictions, that sort of thing. Obviously, a lot of this is due to the Enlightenment roots of our culture. The Crusades sort of fly in the face of all that. That's why they're so often dismissed by people in our culture as just incomprehensible. The Crusades were all about passion, zeal, big feelings, big actions, defiance in the face of obstacles. You know, a crusader was not a person who stood politely behind a sales counter and smiled timidly, trying not to offend people. He acted as his heart dictated. He was brave. He was in touch with his soul, you might say. If nothing's true, then you don't want anything to be hard. You want life to be easy and comfy and cozy. It's a lot safer not to upset anyone, to go around being careful not to rock the boat. But what does this really make of human beings? Could it be that this makes them into something more like bunny rabbits than men? Today, Western civilization is under assault, both from external enemies, but also from within, by those who wish to decry our history and alter the soul of our society. Amid all this, the Crusades need to become the new symbol of our pride in Western civilization, our pride in our history. At a time when Islam ruled over some of the most powerful empires in the world, the Crusaders united the West under the cause of the cross, marching out against incredible odds. Ultimately, this was the first big movement of the medieval world that brought Europe together under a common cause, and there was a lot of subtlety and depth to this movement. melding the ideas of sacrificial Christian love and military valor, the Crusades successfully halted the expansion of Islam. You can even give dates to it. In 1492, the last outpost of Islamic Spain was returned to Christianity, and in 1571, the Turkish expansion was halted at Lepanto. Both of these events were fueled by the fervor of the crusade. Had the love of the cross not stirred the hearts of Europe's knights, the West may well have been overrun by Islam. This would mean no scientific revolution, no American colonization, no rise of the West. It goes without saying that all of our lives would be very different under such circumstances. Our children need heroes. Martyrs and the humbler, more passive type saints are wonderful. But, our boys need some military heroes to look up to. Let us hold up the example of the Crusaders and give them tales of Godfrey at Jerusalem, Richard at Arsuf, James at Valencia, and Fernando at Sevilla. Let them hear about the famous fierce charge of the Templars that made all of Islam tremble. X-Men and Harry Potter are poor heroes for our boy children. Let them look up to the Crusaders. As an historian, the Crusades fascinate me just in terms of the incredible meeting of cultures they represent, punctuated by huge personalities and events. But the Crusades should strike a deeper chord in us. They should remind us that the history of Western civilization is full of courage and passion, and that we ourselves should carry on in this tradition. The Crusades represent a powerful symbol for all people in the world struggling against tyranny and impossible odds. A toast to courage and love. Long live the spirit of crusade.
Přišla ta chvíle, musíš stát se zbraní v ruce, jít se rvát a víra tvá tě přesvědčí, braně zemi svou